Wait. So the 23rd we have 197. 2 days later it goes to 198. 199 on the 26th. 200 on the 27th. Wait. I really have to do something about this. Hello everybody, and welcome to the beginner's guide on how to DX. I'm here with Andre from SWL. He is a very experienced DXer. From around when he was in his teenage times, he was DXing. How are you, Andre?
Hey Dennis, it's very nice to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
No problem. Anyways, this is sort of a beginner's tutorial. Now, I just want to ask you some quick questions, okay?
Sure.
What is DXing, number one?
Okay, I'll explain because we are talking to beginners, right? So I'm going to keep it as simple as possible.
Of course.
DXing comes from the name actually comes from the Q codes that were used for telegraph operators more than 100 years ago. The Q codes were developed in 1909, and it was a way for telegraph operators all around the world to communicate with one another without even understanding the language, because the codes were the messages. So DX was the code that was used that time to indicate distance or distant. And this was taken up by hobbyists later who started listening to distant radio stations. It was medium wave radio stations mostly in the beginning, and then it moved on to shortwave as well. So DX means to scan the radio bands and look for a distant radio signal. So it's an easy thing to do. You basically just need a radio that has got shortwave and medium wave coverage, because you can do it both on shortwave and on medium wave. And yeah, that's in a nutshell what it is. To DX is to look for distant radio signal. And the letters DX actually stand for distant or distance.
That's very interesting. So, how would you DX on a budget?
It's as simple as getting a radio. You just need a radio. One, of course, that has shortwave and medium wave coverage. Because although some people do FM DXing as well, but I think we're not going to talk about that today. I'm not an FM DXer expert. But get yourself a radio, a cheap one. Don't spend too much money on an expensive radio when you start out. So get something like this. There's the Texan R9012, this one here, or the Reticus V115, which is actually a really nice little radio, this one. It just needs an external aerial to help it along a little bit. Or you can use something like the XH Data D219, which is this one. This one is really inexpensive. It's about $10, and it's a very, very good radio. It's actually very good with picking up very distant signal. So to start off, you need your radio, and you need to then just find a good time to DX. I think we can talk about that just now a little bit as well. But you switch on your radio and you scan the bands, and then you try to identify what signals you are picking up. And there's ways to do that. There's lots and lots of websites that help you, that show you what the signals are that you are picking up. So to start is as easy as getting hold of a little radio.
That is quite easy, actually. Is there, like, when you mention the external aerial on the Reticus V115, what do you mean?
Sometimes on some of these radios, the built-in antenna is not very good quality. The Reticus has a very short built-in antenna. So one of the easiest ways to improve your reception is to use a piece of wire. You can buy it, or you can just literally take a piece of speaker wire. It will work. Any kind of wire will work. And you just tie that around your antenna and throw most of the wire outside your window. Try to get it outside because there's less radio frequency interference outside, outdoors. And that will help you to improve your reception.
So, like, throwing it in a tree would be a good idea, maybe, for instance.
Yeah, if your wire is long enough. This one that I'm using now is very short. It's only 3 meters. So it's literally just hanging out of the window. I clipped it to the roof tiles outside. So it's not very long and it's not very high even. But it works. It really helps to improve reception. One of the things I should mention that maybe when you start DXing, a lot of people are very frustrated because they feel they're not picking up anything. They switch on the radio, they go to the shortwave bands, they start scanning, and all they hear is noise. And that is unfortunately one of the things that you need to be aware of when you start with DXing is there is a lot of electrical noise in cities and towns and suburbs. And that will affect your DXing experience. It helps to go to a very quiet place in your house if you can, and to switch off as much as possible of the electrical equipment in that room where you are. TVs, laptops, they are very bad for DXing. They cause a lot of interference. In my DXing room, which is my study, even the light causes interference. So I usually DX in the dark with an extra with just a battery operated light. So when you start and it seems like there's just noise and you cannot hear anything, take a look around and try to get rid of some of the electrical interference that is in your room.
So you mentioned, like, your lights system overhead might be a good example of interference, and laptops as well. Is there any other major culprits?
Well, nobody will DX in the kitchen, but the fridge, any kind of electrical equipment. It also differs because my light causes interference for me, but other people's lights don't. It depends on the type of light that you have. So the best thing is to just switch off everything you can until you feel that the noise is gone. You sort of have to try and isolate the main source of noise on your radio, and that you can only do by switching off whatever you can all around you. But laptops, really, that's quite an interference. So that's one thing that you should keep far away from your radios when you are DXing. I think that's probably one of the main causes.
Okay, what is the correct time for DXing, would you say?
Yeah, there is actually a good time for DXing, the whole day. But it depends on the bands. There's certain bands that you can DX even during daytime, and certain bands you need to scan at night. I'll show you on this radio.
Sure.
These ones, 13, there's nothing on the 15 meter band. Oh, okay, my radio doesn't have a 15 meter. I see. 13, 16, and 19. These bands are generally very good in daytime. You'll usually pick up something there in daytime. And then from the 22 meter band upwards, all of these are usually better at night. Although in the 60 meter band, you might pick up things during the daytime. And sometimes I pick up stuff in the 31 meter band during daytime as well. I would say don't restrict yourself to listening to only 13, 16, and 19 meter band during the day, and then only these other bands at night. If you're listening in the daytime, start with these ones, see what you can find, but then just scan all these other bands quickly. You might be surprised. Sometimes stuff do come through. But as a rule of thumb, from 22 meter up 75 meter, 120 meter, not that there's much happening in the 120 meter band, but all those are better in the night, in the evening. 19, 16, 13 meter better in the day.
I see. So then also medium wave would count for being at night time, isn't it?
Most definitely, yes. Medium wave in the daytime, you will pick up only strong local signals. But at night, when conditions are good, medium wave just comes alive. You will be able to pick up really a lot of stuff from very, very distant locations, but only at night. Medium wave, definitely only at night.
That is very interesting. Anyways, so if you want to DX on the go, what sort of things would you need to bring with you?
If it's possible, you can take your little wire antenna with you. That will always help. And then obviously you need to choose one of your radios that is quite portable. Of course, we must remember that, especially people who start DXing might have only one radio. So just take your radio with you. If it's a little portable like these ones that I've shown you, just take it with you. Just pack it nicely and make sure you don't bump it. Radios are very sensitive pieces of equipment, so don't drop them or bump them. Pack nicely. Um, but when I travel, I never ever travel without a radio. So I will usually take my. I usually It's difficult for me to decide usually which one I want to take, but the XH Data D808 has become quite a favorite in the past few weeks. So I think next time when I travel, I will probably take that one. In the past, I used to take the Texan PL368, which is a very small radio, very, very portable, excellent quality, very, very good reception. And the little wire antenna, if you can, if you're in a hotel room, for example, and you can open the window, it will help if you can throw that wire antenna out of the window. If you are in a hotel room, because tall buildings inside DXing is also not that good. So if you're in a hotel room, just DX by the window. It makes quite a big difference. But when I travel, I'm also going on a trip abroad at the end of this year, and I'm probably going to take my XH Data D808 with me because I definitely want to do some DXing in USB mode, and that radio does have that. And I definitely want to do some medium wave DXing, and the D808 is very, very good for medium wave DXing. So I would say it depends on your interests. When you start with a hobby, you might find that you really enjoy medium wave DXing. So make sure when you travel, you take a radio that's good on medium wave. If you really enjoy shortwave, just take one that's very good on shortwave. And once I'm rambling now, but I get so excited about this hobby. But these small radios are quite okay actually on medium wave. So these ones that I showed in the beginning, if you've got one of these ones, they'll work. I took this XH Data with me, this D219, to Cape Town a couple of months ago or weeks ago, and I had a lot of fun with it. Very good reception on medium wave as well. So I think that's an important message that I want to leave in general today is don't restrict yourself in terms of thinking I always have to take the best, I always have to try and find the best. How do we define best? The best radio for you personally is the one that you enjoy using and that you can have some fun with, that you can afford to buy. Just the radio that you find that works for you. So this can be the best radio for you if that is the one that you buy and that you start out with.
Interesting. Anyways, talking of different types of radios, there are two main types of radios that most DXers usually use. There's analog radios and there's DSP radios. What is the difference between them, and how will I know which one is best?
Yeah, there's that question best again, eh?
Oh.
It really depends on what you on what works best for you personally. I just want to maybe clarify. We've got analog radios and then DSP-based radios, but DSP-based radios also have some analog characteristics, né? And then we have full-on digital radios. So maybe we just need to clarify between these three concepts first. A full-on digital radio, like a DAB Plus radio, for example, is a radio that the transmitter already converts signals to digital, and digital it's numbers, ne? Series of numbers, digits. That's where the name digital comes from. And then the DAB plus radio processes that and recons it back to sound. Where with a DSP-based radio, like this one is a DSP-based radio, this one is a DSP-based radio. The signal they receive is still an analog signal. They just have processors inside, those DSP chips, which stands for digital signal processing. So those DSP chips receive the analog signal, converts it to digital to demodulate the message, the words, the sound, whatever, and then reconverts it to analog so that you get the actual analog sound, analog output. Okay? With a full-on analog radio like this one, everything is analog. So the signal is a radio wave, which has been modulated, so it's got information added to that wave, to that sine wave. That wave reaches the radio, and there is firstly the tuner. You need to tune to find the exact signal, and then there is a detector inside that picks up the signal that demodulates the signal. So it turns that wave back into sound that you can hear on your radio. So the difference between DSP and full-on analog is not that big, actually. It's just got to do with the processing. They both receive analog signals, regular radio waves. The sine wave with the modulated information added to it. In that processing, there's a little bit of a difference. The way the radio sounds and the way the radio, not sounds really, but the way you tune is a little bit different. On the analog radio, you hear the static a lot more. Here we go, 657. You can hear it starts coming. It's just that there's certain segments. And there it is. Eh? And then as you move away,
it just fades
sort of
out.
Fades away. Yeah. Where on the other one, that is the main difference. But it's really a user preference. It's for some people who want to really DX very, 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 very weak signals, a DSP-based radio like this one will not work well. Because for those really weak signals, you need to tune around and listen very carefully in between all the noise to find something. So that is if you're like becoming a really professional DXer, then a very expensive DSP radio will work. But these more basic types perhaps then is not the best choice. So let's just see. This is on medium wave.
Absolutely amazing. Going to go from FNB.
You see, it's just there. Boom.
Highway, North New Canada on the N7.
And it's got
macro, and then also.
That's a typical DSP thing. There's about 3 peaks here. So I find the signal in 3 different places.
Forward
see.
Yeah.
And then it's gone. Then it's just gone. So that's the main difference.
I see. So then with this being said then, would you say earphones are important when you're DXing?
Earphones are important for the people around you. Because DXing can make quite a lot of noise. I personally don't use my earphones all the time when I'm DXing, but I sit in my study, I close the door, I don't disturb anyone in the house. If you have people around, use earphones. If you are looking for very, very weak signals or trying to identify very weak signals, a good pair of earphones will help. Sometimes, especially on these smaller radios, again, the speakers are maybe not the best, but sometimes the earphone sound is really, really good if you have a good pair of earphones. So earphones are good for identifying very weak signals. Sometimes you just hear a little bit of talking, but you cannot make out the language nicely. Then a pair of earphones might be good.
I see. I just want to know another thing here. What is a QSL card?
Oh yeah, that is how you can prove that you've received a station. That is again something that comes from the Q codes. QSL is a Q code. What we spoke about right at the beginning there, when I spoke about DXing, the telegraph operators used these codes, the letters QSL. If they sent a telegraph transmission, Morse code to the Titanic, for example, then they might have ended that transmission with the letters QSL and a question mark, to confirm whether that message was received.
Huh.
And then if a message was received, the recipient would respond simply with the letters QSL without a question mark or a stop or anything. And that would mean confirm I received your message.
I hear
So
that a lot in ham radio. That's why.
yes, yes, exactly. In ham radio, it's used a lot. So QSL cards, they come from that. They confirm reception of a signal. Once you receive a signal that is maybe a little bit, different or interesting, you can usually find the contact details for that radio station online or in radio handbooks or in radio clubs. There's lots of groups also, people who do shortwave listening, they sometimes share these details. You send them an email. Sometimes in the old days, it used to be by post, but you send them an email now. You give them some information about what you heard, because that's how they know that you actually heard the signal. So to receive a QSL card, usually you need to send them an email with information about the frequency that you listen to, about the time, and then some information about the content of the program that you heard, and then some information about the signal quality. They appreciate that also. And then they will confirm with a QSL card, which is, in the past, it used to be in the shape of a postcard. Nowadays, they often send them as digital QSL cards, so like a PDF document that you will receive, usually with a nice picture of the station, and they put your name on it, and they say, "Thank you, we confirm that you received our transmission." It's a nice way to keep track of the stations that you've received.
Huh. I see. Anyways, also now, I just want to know, how was it DXing in the past? But before that, let me do something quickly. I think it's about time we just rewind a bit now. I think that should be enough. Okay, welcome to the 1980s. So, how would you DX in this time? How was it?
Yeah, in the past, we didn't have these nice radios with digital displays like this one. So you didn't always know exactly what frequency you were on. That was one of the first challenges. But it was actually really amazing. I was a teenager. I was actually about your age when I started DXing in the 1980s. And that was the time of the Cold War, actually. And it was a really interesting time. There were lots of very interesting stations from Eastern Europe, from the communist countries that time, like from Albania and from the DDR, East Germany, and Radio Moscow as well, Radio Prague from Czechoslovakia, as it was known then. And everyone was competing on the airwaves. They all wanted to grab your attention. So if you wrote to them, they would often they would reply, all of them, and they would send you program booklets, they would send you newsletters sometimes. It was a very, very interesting time, and very active, the airwaves. So every single night when you turned on your radio, there were just so many signals. Sometimes I had a very, very simple radio that time. It only had one shortwave band. Everything was on this one band, from 13 meter to, mine only went to 49 meter, I think, that time. So everything was packed very, very tightly together. Your entire radio, the tuning display was almost filled with signals from beginning to end, every single night. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. By saying that, there's still a lot happening on shortwave now. People must not think that shortwave is dead. I'm actually surprised how often, not maybe I'm exaggerating, but there are some new signals coming online occasionally. Algeria recently started one, Ifriqiya FM.
Yeah,
I heard
we've
there's some new signals in Europe coming online. There's new stuff happening, and apart from the regular broadcast shortwave listening, you can also have a lot of fun in USB mode. These utility signals, as they call them, you can pick up spy signals. You can pick up weather forecasts from places all
huh.
around the world. So there's airline weather you can pick up. There's still really a lot happening. I don't feel that I'm not in any way not having as much fun with shortwave now as I had when I was younger. I'm enjoying it just as much. There's just so much that you can still discover. So it's still a great hobby. But yes, the 1980s was very interesting, very ideological, of course. Also, all the stuff that you heard on the radio.
I'm sure it was. There are actually recordings on the internet from people who did record those, even on reel to reel and on things such as cassettes. I have one with me actually here. This is just Teach Yourself Turkish one. I used
Okay,
it for learning Turkish over the years.
okay.
It still works actually, and it's just amazing, you know. Things have changed a lot over the years, obviously, and like you said, there are some new signals coming in, and I wouldn't say that also that shortwave is dead. I think it's just being like sort of repurposed in a sense, because you know there is also the DRM thing as well. I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
Mm,
Well, for those that are watching here, DRM is essentially digital shortwave. You can also DX
mm.
on that, but it's currently not available all over the world. It's not available in our region in South Africa, so that's why we're not mentioning it in this video.
Mm. And it's still a bit hard to find DRM receivers. I have seen only about one or two that are available at the moment. But that's an interesting development. Also, shortwave, in times of crisis, people rely on shortwave or medium
Hmm.
wave to a lesser extent. But and it's not a doomsday way of looking at things. It's just a way of sort of. That's why I think everyone should actually have at least one shortwave radio. Just have it, because we don't know the weather. No? There's
Hmm.
climate change in the world. You don't know if there's going to be a big storm or something and all power is out, and you need some information about what's going on in the world. On shortwave, you'll always find it somewhere. Um, Also, of
Even if
course, with
it's
the
not
with the
local.
war between. Exactly, but you can still find some information. Eh? So if for
Yeah.
some reason the local signal goes down, then you can find some information from somewhere, just what's going on. And during, like now with the Russia-Ukraine war as well, a lot of countries restarted shortwave broadcasting because of that,
Hmm.
both into Russia and into Ukraine. So it's a medium that is still being used and still very, very useful. Um, Here in Africa, where we are, of course, there are, and the same is true for Brazil. There are so many people living in relatively isolated communities, and they don't have local FM towers, so their radio comes from shortwave quite often, sometimes medium wave. But that's why Brazil has so many shortwave radio stations as a local radio station. And the same is true in many places in Africa and in China as well, and some other places as well.
That is certainly quite interesting, and that's pretty much all of the questions. I really thank you for your time, Andre. It was nice talking to you. Viewers, his channel link is in the description. It will also be available in an info card. Andre,
And before you go, Dennis, I have one question for you.
sure, go ahead.
Why would a young person like you do DXing when you have games and Netflix streaming and I don't know what else? I'm really happy that young people are interested in this hobby, and I'm just very interested in knowing what piqued your interest.
Well, it's a long story, but to summarize it, from around 2019, I started learning about airport signals and how aeroplanes communicated. They communicated over the VHF band. And my radio for VHF, it's actually right next to me here. It's 108 to 136 megahertz. That's usually the frequency signal for VHF on aircraft. There are even some shortwave signals. There is one that you picked up. I will link that also in the description. It is also to do with the receiving of airport frequencies. But ever since I started doing that, I noticed that my radio also had other modes. It had shortwave and medium wave, so I just decided to just scan the bands like I usually would. And I quite liked listening to the radio back then anyways, so that was pretty much where it came from.
Okay. Yeah, I think, once you discover this hobby and you see how much there is actually, because like you say, there's also other stuff that you can listen to. It's not just shortwave and medium wave.
Yeah. There's long wave as well, but that one's
exactly.
It's not. There's long wave. There's DRM, DAB,
and there's airband as well, man. A lot of people do that.
Then there's also the 2-meter band amateur radio. That sort of thing.
Yeah. It's a fascinating hobby. I hope you will keep enjoying it, and I thank you for inviting me for talking. I hope I managed to answer some of your viewers' questions.
Well, thank you. I'm sure you most certainly did. Everyone, thank you for watching. Have a good day. We'll see you in the next video.